You were born in Houston to a 14-year-old single mother. You were the surviving child of twins born to an affluent family. Your mother was a former slave. A sensitive and sickly child, vague and dreamy, you were often taken to be mentally retarded and were beaten regularly at school by your teachers and at home by your father. You began singing at a young age and soon became a sports car journalist and test driver for your own car racing magazine, Auto Pop. You began experiencing fainting spells at age 9, and people took your sleepwalking as evidence of secret powers. While still a schoolboy, you began to reject the Talmud. You underwent what was interchangeably described as the benediction, the immensity, the sacredness, the vastness, and most often, the otherness. Beginning in your youth, you were uncomfortable with sexuality, especially your own. After service in the Red Army, you settled in Minusинsk. You worked as a traffic policeman before losing your job in 1989. You were convicted of practicing pharmacy without a license and fined 200,000 yen. On August 28, 1974, you were arrested in Harlingen, Texas, for stealing credit cards. You took over the identity of your deceased predecessor, and in so doing, completely erased your own. You had a son named Imperator. You had 4 children, Osiris, Isis, Iris, Hypatia. You asserted that your marriage was never physically consummated. You asserted that though you lay naked with virgins, when the virgins asked you for sex, you refused. You were commanded to take a wife of whoredom as the first symbolic act of your calling. You spent your street days wandering the streets of Council Bluffs, wearing a long white robe, and became a local oddity. You exhibited a 666 tattoo on your forearm. Witnesses stated that you had nail marks in your hands. You felt compelled to eat non-kosher food and speak the forbidden name of God. You gained notoriety for the many Rolls Royces that were bought for your use, eventually numbering 93. Your status as a rock singer was very localized. You spoke to an estimated 10,000 in a spacious former casino. Your speech was often peppered with words of your own invention, such as physicalating and tangiblated. Robed in white, you stood behind the curtain and the light brought out in full relief the gilt letters of the Tetragrammaton, which you had placed upon your breast. In the estimated presence of 1 to 500 people, you announced the end of the world and ordered the extermination of 16 enemy families. You claimed that you could slay 10,000 men by hitting your left hand with your right. You addressed tablets to the kings and rulers of the world, asking them to accept your revelation, renounce their material possessions, work together to settle disputes, and endeavor toward the betterment of the world and its peoples. You wrote a book which you said was dictated to you by angels. You dictated 3 books under the influence of nitrous oxide administered to you by your private dentist. You inscribed messianic formulas on your hands and corrected Isaiah 45:1 to include yourself. You wrote your beliefs on a piece of paper and had it read aloud, but due to the clamor among the people, it could not be heard. In a spiritual vision, you were shown a plot of land containing the graves of such members of your community as are destined to be in heaven. The prophet Elijah appeared to you in a dream and led you to a beautiful garden where you saw the pious of all ages in the form of birds flying through the garden and studying the Mishnah. You employed mystic prayers of your own composition to call upon the names of angels not accepted by the church canon. You claim to have led a convoy of rocket ships to Earth from the extinct planet Neophrtes. You taught that dissatisfaction and evil among blacks caused a major explosion to happen on Earth 66 trillion years ago, creating the current moon that orbits the planet. You asserted that a network of drug companies, banks, and psychiatrists were conspiring against you in a bid to take over the world. You threatened to drive the Christians into the sea, and you launched a major military offensive with your 1,500 dervishes equipped with 20 modern rifles. You said, "I am," at which point the high priest tore his own robe in anger and accused you of blasphemy. You declared the founding of the heavenly kingdom of transcendent peace on January 11th, 1851. The total volume of your works is more than 70 times the size of the Quran and more than 15 times the size of the Old and New Testaments of the Bible. You claimed that you discovered a mathematical code in the text of the Quran involving the number 19. You changed granite into sugar candy, changed water into gasoline, produced objects on demand, changed the color of your gown while wearing it, multiplied food, healed acute and chronic diseases, appeared in visions and dreams, made different fruits appear on actual stems on any tree, controlled the weather, physically transformed into various deities, and physically emitted brilliant light. You authorized the burning of lists of pedigrees and books of law and theology because of their association with the old regime. You will lead the 10 lost tribes back to the Holy Land while riding on a lion with a 7-headed dragon in its jaws. Your face will be visible on the moon, the sun, and the black stone in Mecca. You will reign over the whole world with 2 legitimate authorities, not only religious, but also political. After your judgment, you will throw the corrupt into the fire. The kingdom of heaven began to collapse in 1880, when both of your children died of diphtheria. Your son was suddenly killed at the age of 22 when he fell through a skylight while pacing back and forth in prayer and meditation. The departure of your disciples weakened, demoralized, and angered you, and it was at this juncture that you composed your most famous poem, The Tree of Bad Counsel. During a meal, you predicted that one of your disciples would betray you. Followed by your disciples, you rode a donkey to the edge of the bluffs, whereupon you leaped off the edge. In 1706, you were killed by your nephew during a discussion about money matters. You died in Chatsworth, California on December 10, 1958, in a suicide bombing instigated by 2 disgruntled former followers. In June 1934, you left Detroit for Chicago and disappeared without a trace. You suddenly disappeared, and the extravagant hopes of your followers suddenly came to an end. Your remaining disciples tore your bloody shirt from your body and divided it up for relics. Your remains were dumped outside the gates of the town to be eaten by animals. There were many among your followers who did not accept your demise and expected your imminent return. You are said to have descended from the higher planes and manifested a physical body in early 1977 in the Himalayas. Then, on July 19th, 1977, to have taken a commercial airplane flight from Pakistan to England. Thank you.